Hey folks, it's Finn. Today's video is a trans topic and I want to talk today about phalloplasty, specifically about the urethral hookup part of phalloplasty. Now the reason I've called this the truth about urethral hookup is because I think there are a lot of misconceptions about this, and also I really want to share honestly about what you can expect both during this surgery and afterwards. Most trans guys who choose to go through phalloplasty lower surgery do have at least one complication. Those who follow me will know that I had quite a few. So today I want to share about the entirety of my journey from first getting hooked up to where I am now, in order to give you a very realistic and honest account of the journey to stand to pee and the end result. Urethral lengthening, where your wee pipe is extended so you can stand to pee, is a very complicated procedure, especially when compared to metoidioplasty. With metoidioplasty, there's less distance for them to have to reroute the urethral tube. Obviously with phalloplasty, there's a bigger length to hook up. Now, trying to lengthen a wee pipe is incredibly complicated. I mean, Mr. Christopher described it once to me as trying to operate on a wet noodle, and you can just imagine something so thin and delicate, and you have to try and find a way to lengthen that. Now, with phalloplasty, they use the arm graft, they use the underneath portion of your arm, and that is actually what they create the pipe with, which goes within your penis itself. And that is fused with your wee pipe that you already have, so that it's lengthened so you can stand to pee. Because this extended wee pipe is created from your arm, there's a number of things that can go wrong. There can be hair growth in it, you can get strictures where you get little holes or little tears in it, or sometimes you can get where the urethra goes baggy so that you get like a very floppy area where wee can collect and you can get infections from it. There is so much that can go wrong, and the skin on this arm isn't designed to be wet all the time, so it doesn't react the same as your urethra pipe would do. So it's understandable there are many complications in this part of phalloplasty. There isn't really a lot that can be done to minimise the risks. Surgery advances and the way they do it has made it more and more successful each time, and less complications each time. Often though, it's just luck of the draw. It's just the way you heal, whether your hairs grow, whether you get infections. You can do certain things like removing the hair from the under portion of your arm, and in fact if at your consultation your underside of your arm is very hairy, you'll often be given some sessions of either laser hair removal or the other version, whatever it is. There's various different types of hair removal, and that can help to then limit the hair growth in the urethral tube itself. Making sure you drink loads of water throughout your surgeries, making sure you have huge strict routines when it comes to caring for the catheter throughout all the surgeries, that can help as well. I always also recommend D-Manus powder, and I'll put a link below to this. It's basically the same stuff that you find in cranberry juice, but drinking cranberry juice isn't necessarily good because it's got lots of sugar in it, which irritates the bladder anyway. But the actual stuff in it is really good for preventing urinary tract infections. So D-Manus powder is basically that, stripped out, bare and natural. And I've taken the preventative dose throughout my surgeries after I had my initial problems, and then after that, taking that, it really did help. And every now and again, if I ever notice I've got a little bit of a wee problem starting to happen, I nip it in the bud with D-Manus powder just in case. So other than those things, really, it's just down to pure luck or bad luck if you get a complication. As I said earlier, those who follow my journey will know that I had a fair few complications, to say the least. I had my second stage surgery, the urethral hookup part, on the 9th of April 2016, and initially everything seemed fine. I'll put a video up to my first pee attempt after the catheter came out. It was bliss. I had no problem, I was weeing fine, no issues whatsoever. And then, thinking that I'd been really lucky and escaped all of the issues, I went in for my final stage, the erectile device, on the 13th of January 2017 and woke up to discover that they hadn't done lower surgery because they discovered a cul-de-sac. What? That was the way Mr. Christopher lovingly described it anyway, but basically what had happened is my urethra had got baggy, and then so rather than it being a straight urethra, there was a little outpouching that had grown here. And although it wasn't causing me any issues, there was a chance it could end up causing me infections down the line. And they don't like to do the final stage, the erectile device, unless they've definitely sorted out your urethra, because it's much harder to fix a urethra after you have the erectile device. So unfortunately, failed attempt for stage 3 for me, and I had my urethra fixed. They cut that little bit away, cleaned it all up, gave me a catheter. Now, straight away after the surgery, things started to go wrong. I just had problem after problem with it, and they took the catheter out and it just got worse and worse and worse. I was having burning when I was peeing, there was forever blood in my wee. I knew things weren't right. They took me back in a couple of months later on the 3rd of March 2017 to have a look at what was going on, and they discovered that it was a huge infection in there, and the only way to solve it for them was to actually undo the whole of my urethra to give it time to heal and open me up a little bit underneath so I could pee from underneath. I don't need to tell you how distressing that was. Those that follow me will remember just how bad the dysphoria returned. It was worse than ever, because from being able to pee everywhere to suddenly having to return to peeing from underneath and having a hole underneath, which, although wasn't my original equipment, reminded me of it. It was a really, really horrendous time. It felt like the longest 6-7 months of my life, but finally on the 2nd of October 2017, I went back in to see if they could re-hook it back up. At the time they were thinking that it might be that I needed a little graft from my mouth to fix it, maybe a little tiny graft from my arm to fix it, depending on how bad things were. But I woke up to discover that they'd actually managed to fix it. So nervous for quite a while after that. Was it going to do the same thing again? But everything settled down and I went back to peeing okay. And standing up to pee was such a relief. When I went in for my final stage of the erectile device on the 8th of August last year, 2018, I was really nervous that they were going to find something again. But I woke up and obviously discovered that Finn Jr. had taken off, so to speak, and I was issue free, and I've remained issue free, touch wood, this whole time. So from my last hookup on the 2nd of October 2017 through to now, so like 1.5 years, it's okay. No issues whatsoever. I am still really careful, and I occasionally take the D-Manage just to make sure my bladder's okay and all neutral and there's nothing nasty in there that can cause any issues. But yes, I seem to have been fixed, standing to pee, absolutely fine. So sharing that huge journey, how do I feel now on reflection of all of that? Looking back at all that, it was a nightmare, and I'm so glad it's all over, but you know, I'm very glad with where I am at now. All of the complications were worth it to reach the point I am now. You know, being able to stand to pee is wonderful. It was actually my biggest priority in lower surgery, was always the standing to pee bit. For me, it felt like an important part of being complete, was to be able to hold my penis in my hand and pee through it, you know. So that's where a lot of my dysphoria was. It's made such a difference now in that I have social anxiety anyway, but the additional worry of where I was going to go to the toilet was making things worse. Now I can easily go places without panicking beforehand about the toilets, you know. I can stand at urinal and it's fine. However, it isn't 100% perfect, and I think it's really important to mention this. If you've been doing some phalloplasty research, you may have seen that a lot of trans guys talk about issues with dripping after they've been to the toilet. Now sometimes this dripping is down to an issue. If you've got a baggy urethra, for example, and weir's collecting, it makes sense that when you change position, it's going to come out of wherever it had been collecting. But sometimes it isn't an issue whatsoever. There's no problem in there. It's just the way it is. You just drip. Now, according to one of the surgeons who I chatted with, the reason that this often happens is because our anatomy, our trans men anatomy, is different to us cis males. Us trans guys don't have the muscles running underneath the penis that push that last bit of wee out. So that's why so many trans guys do have this problem of dripping after going to the toilet. A lot of trans guys talk about milking, for want of a better term. I really wish you wouldn't call it that, but it's basically where you kind of run your hand down your penis to squeeze the last bit of drops out. That's what they do. And yes, this is something I too have an issue with. Ironically, after my first hookup, I didn't have this issue at all. This time around, I do. So it must be something to do with the way my new urethra is now configured, is that it's more easy for some wee to collect somewhere. So I have to definitely make sure after I use the toilet that I do this thing where I run my fingers down my penis to squeeze the last bits out. Now, a lot of guys talk about this and talk about their frustration with this, and I can really relate. It was something I was really frustrated about. It happened to me a lot. I was also very embarrassed about it. You know, I was worried that I'd smell of wee. I used to use some shields in my pants just to give it a little bit of protection, because I was so worried that I would go to the toilet and not get all the wee out and it would end up coming out as I'm walking around. You know, it was a real worry in the beginning. However, like everything else with lower surgery, things take a while to settle down. Swelling takes a while to settle down. It takes a while to get used to your new body configuration. I think that's what's happened for me. I now know my anatomy. I know that if I press on a little area just underneath my scrotum, I can get a last bit of wee out. If I do that and then run my fingers down my penis, I most of the time don't have an issue with dripping. So it's no longer a concern for me. I've got it down to a fine art now that I can do it at a urinal without really thinking about it. And it's fine. It's no longer an issue for me. I still do drip on occasion, but I've got it so that most of the time it's okay. Now, I'm sharing this because I do always emphasize this aspect of anything to do with our transition, that we have to manage our expectations, especially with something as complex as phalloplasty surgery and urethral lengthening. We can get a penis that's close enough, but will never work in the same way that a cisgender male penis does. There is no surgery that can exactly replicate it. Yes, the surgeries are getting better and better each time, but there'll always be a little bit of compromise for us. And for many trans guys, myself definitely one of them, a little bit of dripping is where we have to compromise. I've come to accept that this is part of it, and I have it on good authority by lots of other men that it's not just trans guys that get the dripping issue. You know, it's quite common that a lot of men get this dripping issue too, so we're not alone in this. I do often still use the kind of pant shields. These things. They're really small and discreet. They come in this wrapper. They're really thin. They're black, so you can wear them with black pants. You can see how thin they are. And they just literally line the bottom of your boxers or your pants or whatever you wear. They just help me to feel more confident that I'm not going to drip and it's going to show through my trousers or something. And it's actually quite nice to feel quite fresh. I use them a lot at festivals just because it's just a nice bit of kind of comfort and cleanliness. None of this affects how I feel about the successfulness of my surgery. I am over the moon with the way everything is. To have everything finished now and working, it's just incredible. And because I've learned to manage my expectations, and I know that there are going to be some little things that I can never get 100% right, but I can get good enough, I'm happy, really, really happy with my surgical outcome. And I only share this and I share the issues because I think it's such an important part of managing to survive phalloplasty surgery, to have a very realistic view of what can go wrong, but also to know that when things do go wrong, they can be fixed, and also to be able to manage your expectations and be realistic that most guys are going to have at least one issue going through this surgery because it is a big, complicated thing. So I'm sharing this very honestly, the truth of how it is, not to put you off, but to help you to be better prepared for going through this and for every eventuality. As my story shows, even the most awful of complications can be overcome to reveal one very, very, very happy man. I really hope that was helpful. If you do have any comments or questions, please do leave them in the box down below. I'll put a link up to my blog where there's some more transgender resources up there. A little note as well, I know there are many of you that follow my channel specifically for the trans updates. At the moment, because I'm doing so much work on my business, I'm trying all sorts of other different videos as well. But I promise you I will never go away from the trans videos. There will be plenty of them, so please do subscribe. And I'm going to try from now onwards to make Tuesday always the trans topic, so you've got a trans topic every single week for those who follow me for those. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget, it's progress, not perfection. Take care of yourselves. See you soon. Bye-bye.